The game is Sicily 2, part of the Operational Combat series by The Gamers and Multiman Publishing. Here it is. I've got the campaign game set up. You can see the map of Sicily there, and you can probably see just about quite a lot of counters all over it. The historical setup that I've got going on here starts on the 10th of July with when the American and Commonwealth forces have just landed. We've got Americans landing around here, and a big naval stack here of destroyers, cruisers and British aircraft carriers, and then the Commonwealth landings over here south of Syracuse, which is up there, and we've got the city of Catania up here, and the rather famous Battle of Promosol Bridge just in here. And yeah, it's mayhem, to be honest. Part of that feeling is because when I broke this out, I suddenly realised I hadn't played any OCS for about 2.5-3 years, so it suddenly all felt rather unfamiliar. I could recognise it, but I couldn't. I knew the turn structure and I know the fundamentals, but there are a lot of details that I wasn't aware of. And this game has, as you can see, a lot of naval components to it. It's got beach landings, it's got airdrops, it's got loads of off-map holding boxes with air force, and it's got a floating forces box that you can ship in more combatants on the Allied side, and it's got a whole load of off-map, long-range aircraft over there that and paras and 82nd Airborne and all kinds of things coming in, and so you've got to manage quite a lot in this game. You've got to take ports or create ports through landing craft quick enough to be able to get supply onto the island. You've got to take airfields in order to be able to get aircraft based around you, to provide air cover around your troops and so on. So there's a lot to think about here for the invading force, and time pressures as well, because of the victory conditions, which ask the Allies to have taken most of the island in about 9 or 10 turns, really, ideally 12 if you're pushing it. So there's so much to think about here, but as always with OCS, it is really pleasurable thinking, just wondering how you're going to get this done. I think when you tackle a game like this, really there's only one thing to do, and that's crack on with it and learn by experience, and then later figure out what you could have done better for your next game. Right now I've got a few mechanical things to take care of, which will just get the ball rolling and ease me into the game, and that is to conduct fighter sweeps against the German and Italian aircraft. You roll a d6 for each for the German and Italian air forces at the start of the game, and the Germans got a 4, the Italians got a 1, but that did allow them to put 5 of these really nasty Bf 109 fighters into in active positions where they're going to. There's an Italian one there, and then there's a German one there, and there's a couple more over here, I think. So there's one up here, and maybe one in here somewhere, down here, and they are going to interfere with Allied airdrops, which are scheduled to happen in the vicinity. I think there's some British, there's a British airdrop coming in here, there's an American airdrop coming in here, and so in order not to just have all those transports shot out of the sky, it's quite important to run some fighter sweeps and try and get rid of that German air. If the fighter sweeps go badly, and then the Allies will then have to make rolls for the airdrops, and then have to make all kinds of rolls to see how successful these amphibious landings are in each of these hexes with coastal defence forces nearby. If that all goes badly wrong and they roll really poorly, I'm slightly concerned, and I tend to roll poorly for the Allies, just in general. I just have crap dice generally, And so if I roll poorly for the Allies here, you could almost just reset and start again and say, well, they lost that one, because it feels like they could just lose all their landing craft, have all their guys arrive DG, get counterattacked, lose all their aircraft and go home. That probably won't happen, but it's not like they've got overwhelming superiority here or anything stacked much in their favour. So I'm just going to roll through some fighter sweeps. We've got some American Spitfires here, we've got some British Spitfires here, on Malta and Pantelleria. So they're going to have to run some fighter sweeps in against those 109s, and that will get the ball rolling, and we'll see where we're at. And then I'm going to have to make all the amphibious landing rolls for all the landings to see where to see how those have gone before we get underway. So, having bemoaned my luck with the dice rolls, the Commonwealth and Americans have just done a fabulous job. It took them 6 fighter sweep missions to shut down 5 German and Italian 109s. You can see they took a step loss there on this unit of Spitfires, but they've caused 3 step losses to German planes, I think. So that was actually really successful, and now your eyes light up because you think, hold on, we've now got complete control of the skies, having aborted all those fighters, and we've got huge numbers of tactical and strategic bombers in here, and I think we may at some point send those into lay waste to some airfields and see if we can't shut down more of the opposing air force. But that's for the future. The next thing is to go around and make all these landing rolls and paradrops to see how we get on in terms of getting onto the map, and then we'll kind of know what we're dealing with. Obviously, if you look at something like this, you think you're going to hope to get this guy on, not DG'd, so that he can just land in probably in move mode on the other side, just overrun here, capture this, come into here, overrun here, maybe sweep round and overrun this as well, and just clear this whole section ideally before and that will then give you an airbase, which we can then rebase some Spitfires over into, using only less than half their movement, so they'd stay active. And suddenly you can see how you start to develop a sort of network as a foothold on the island. So obviously this airbase here is looking tempting. It's got a unit that we'd like to destroy. This airbase here is looking tempting again. That's got something we'd like to destroy, and so on. So it may be that I made a bit of an error with the Axis Air Force there and was a bit too aggressive with it in terms of setting it up very close to the invasion hexes. But then, you know, the combats could have gone the other way, and we could have been holding our own against the Spitfires and then causing real problems with the airdrops and so on. But as it happens, the Allies have just done a good job there, and now let's see how the landings go. Here we are in Sicily too, still working through this initial invasion. I should bemoan my luck more often. That's worked a treat. I've just made 16 amphibious landing rolls for all the way around the coast for all the Americans and the Commonwealth, and they haven't lost a single thing, not a single landing craft or anything. They've just rolled 6s, 7s, 8s, 9s, 12s, 10s, 11s, everything everything that gets you ashore in perfect order. It was textbook. They have split their navy up to provide barrage cover, because that gives you a plus on the dice rolls. That's why there's some destroyers and cruisers here. Some destroyers with aircraft carriers down here, and the Americans similarly split their navy up to provide barrage fire within range of all their landings, which gives you a +1 modifier on the landing table, which was really helpful for them. So that does work well. Whether it renders the ships vulnerable to a retaliation from the German Air Force remains to be seen. But yeah, that has worked quite well. So now we've got some paradrops to do. There's a special rule in this game where you have to paradrop 5 units from both the American 82nd Airborne and Commonwealth 1st Airborne, or you lose the entire division. So you have to make these paradrops in the first 2 turns with what the air transports that you can rustle together. So the Americans have got one going on in here. I've marked it with this little blue thing here, and they are dropping this. What have they got? Let's have a look. They've got the 2 planes that are going in, and they've got 1, 2, 3 units of the 82nd Airborne. So if we look at this, these are both carrying 2T, I suppose. So we'll say the glider's carrying, because it says 1T on it, but because they're within half range, they can carry double. Otherwise, you never transport anything onto them via air. So these are carrying 2T because they've got gliders, and gliders are safer actually in terms of landing in clear terrain. You succeed on a 4 or more with a glider in clear terrain. And let's say that these are being carried by those and doing that's C-47 and doing a paradrop. Okay. So what we have to do first is roll for scatter, and these paradrops didn't go very well. I think there were high winds and stuff like that. So these airdrops require a scatter roll. You roll 2 dice, and the direction of scatter you roll them sequentially, and then you scatter twice in following this direction. So if you roll 1 and 4 or 2 and 5, you go 1, 2 and end up back in your target hex. But often you can scatter off in the different directions and end up 2 hexes away from where you intended to be, or you could end up scattering out here and about around there, or whatever. So I'm going to roll 2 different coloured dice, and the blue one will be the first scatter and the white one will be the second scatter, and that will show us where we're meant to be. Just as a point as well, these would normally be subject to flak if there were, I think they're subject to flak only if they're in an enemy patrol zone. That's my understanding of the air rules as they currently are, is that this kind of flak, mission subject to flak, only if in an enemy patrol zone, air transport, airdrop and base transfer. And a patrol zone is a defensive area created by an air base with 1 or more active fighters within 10 hexes. And since we've done the fighter sweeps, there are no active fighters, and so there are no patrol zones, and so there is no flak. That's my understanding of the situation. So let's work left to right here, and we'll see where these guys actually come down. So a blue and a white, I said blue first. So we have got 6 and 5. Okay, so 6 is out that way, and then 5 is back this way. 6, 5 is there, and they have power dropped straight into these coastal defence That's interesting. Well, it's disastrous actually, but it does require a little bit of thought, because the rules for paradrops say that if you scatter into an enemy controlled hex, that you are removed from the game. Destroy the unit if its final landing hex is all C or has an enemy combat unit. That would suggest we get destroyed. The coastal defence, though, the first time any of these units is involved in any combat, attack or defence, regular or overrun, roll 1 die. 1 to 4, put it in the dead pile, and on 5 to 6 it fights normally. So the question is, if you paradrop into a coastal defence unit, does it surrender, or does it fight normally, or are you just destroyed? And that isn't a question I think I'm going to find the answer to in the rules. I think, because I think airdrops have to be into empty hexes. Yeah, destroy anything that attempts to land on an enemy combat unit. So that's from the main rulebook as well, which reinforces what the scenario, the Sicily rules say, the game rules say, which means that this unit is no more. He's going in the destroyed pile. The dot behind his action rating means he can't be rebuilt, and so he can go straight back in the box. How unfortunate. Okay, next up, this airborne unit has got a 2 and then a 4. 2 is out this way, and then 4 is back here, so he is landing in that hex there. And let's make the roll for him. He's landing with gliders, which means in a clear hex, which means he succeeds on a 4 or more on 2 dice. And he's got a 6, and he's landed safely and successfully. Okay, let's return these to the inactive box in Tunisia. And let's try here with the rest of the 82nd Airborne. They are scattering in a 3 and 2. 3 is that way, 2 is that way, so they are scattering into this hex here. Okay, 3 and 2. Let's send the plane back to the inactive zone of Tunisia. Okay, and then let's make his roll, and he's just paradropped, not airdropped, so he's in clear terrain. Airdrop needs a 5 or more on 2 dice. He's got a 7, and he's landed successfully as well. Cool. Okay, that's those airdrops done then. Now I'm going to go over and do the British. I'm not going to do them on camera because this has taken a long time and I want to wrap it up. But let's see how the British fare with their airdrop just over here. Well, the British were due to land, I think, in here. And they ended up landing here and here, but they survived, so they are safely on the board. And one last thing to note is that that you have to power drop in move mode, I think, so everything's on its move side rather than its combat side. And also I'm a little confused now because these units are actually called glider. And so I'm now a little bit confused as to whether you use gliders when your units are called glider, or whether when the aircraft that's dropping you is called glider, or both, or whatever. Anyway, I'm going to leave it as is for now and maybe go and read about that. Anyway, let's. It's been they given that they both say glider on them, they were definitely gliders, and they needed 5s or more to survive their landings, and did so with 7s, so they were fine. And like I say, these guys made their landing rolls irrespective of what type of drop they were using, but the poor old 82nd Airborne that landed straight in Geller unfortunately didn't survive. There it is then. We are nowhere near through like this movement segment. You know, we've just got aboard ashore, but now we've got all kinds of moves. I've got all this air to use. We've got barrages that we can do with the naval forces. We've got supply to try and move around. We've got loads and loads to do before we get through this first turn. It's a really, really long, lengthy turn one, this, for the Allies, and then an equally lengthy one, I imagine, as the Axis try and respond. So yeah, this may take a few videos, but I'm going to wrap it here for now.